how do you think about hype versus real value?
When people tell me that AI can substitute for a human, I often tune that out. Machines are very good at certain things that humans are not necessarily good at, like being able to do massive calculations on a fly. That's what machines are very good at. Machines are very
Mhm.
good at automating specific workflows. Machines are not good at creativity.
All that and more on Transformers. What is transformation, and who are the people leading some of the most fascinating transformations happening today? My name is Funai. I am CIO and Vice President of Business Platform Transformation at IBM. Join me as I talk to my fellow nerds about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and a little bit about how their humanity drives what they do. This is Transformers, a Think podcast. Mark Polyak, thank you for joining me today on Transformers.
Glad to be here.
You are Chief Product and Technology Officer at MINT.ai, but you come from maybe not the normal background to come into this type of role. Just a little bit of poking around might find that you have a bit of experience in counterterrorism, and I would love to kind of bridge how you ended up from kind of governmental work over into all that you're doing with Mint AI right now.
Yeah, and it was definitely a career which I would say a lot of luck and sheer chance that this basically happened. In a lot of ways, I was always fascinated in how can you bring in lots and lots of different pieces of data to understand what is taking place, whether it's in a conflict zone, in a disaster area, or in my current job in marketing, if you will. So what started initially as an attempt to focus on counterterrorism, focused on how do you integrate such data sources as satellite imagery, drone imagery, maybe data from signal intelligence phones, if you will, that could give you a sense as to either where a bad person is hiding or potentially where do people need assistance during a humanitarian disaster. And then later on, it became a situation, especially around 2016, 2017, as to how can you use multi-source approach to get better estimating of elections. So I kind of literally by sheer chance ended up switching gears and going from counterterrorism initially into electoral politics, and then later on into much greater sense of how do you integrate multiple sources of data to get closer to truth.
What's fascinating as well is in both cases, whether it's kind of more of a corporate use case with marketing or it's in that situation, there's transparency, but who the transparency is to is a different, obvious, a different point of view. Is how do you how do you reconcile maybe what you had to do in that past life and making sure of data transparency, understanding kind of flow of information versus that it seemed like if you could do this in a counterterrorism environment, it might would you say it's easier in a marketing environment or different or kind of similar foundations?
Some of the places alongside which I grew up, they used to sell T-shirts, which used to sell "In God We Trust, all else we monitor." Right. And I would say it's the same situation where higher the risk of a mistake, the more you want to introduce transparency and audit in order to be able to cross-check what are some of the assumptions that you're making, right? In my previous life, let's say you're looking from a satellite imagery into a particular area, you may see some shelter, and this shelter may indicate presence of refugee camps. So if anybody is using satellite imagery, they may say that they may come to that conclusion. But then you may come to that particular area and you may see that in fact it is a camp of seasonal workers, right? So in this particular case, you're cross-checking one source of information with another by cross-checking a satellite with human presence. So when it comes to advertising, you also don't want to make such a mistake, and you also want to bring in multiple sources of data, multiple sources of experience to ask yourself the question, what is a better way for me to make sure that my money is spent well on this particular platforms and channels?
I don't know if this is a correct assumption, but it's like there's also obviously a very different the foundational information, the foundational skill is the same, but a different set of guardrails. Like Now you're thinking about, GDPR if you're working with European clients, the CCP, like you're looking at different guardrails on the data. Has it been, how much does that play into the AI component versus maybe a data integrity component, that can be used within an AI type environment?
Data integrity is paramount, right? If there's any kind of inconsistency in data, people will not care what kind of AI, what kind of analytics you're using on top of it, right? If the data is wrong in any shape or form, it doesn't matter what enhancements you make to it, right? So you got to start there. But at the same time, you obviously have to work within the frameworks of privacy, CCPA and GDPR. At the same time, once you've solved those two fundamental questions of privacy and data integrity, the next question that you also need to ask yourself is, how do I enhance it? So, for example, in our case, one of the things that we do in order to kind of make our product more useful is we consider synthetic data, where we may combine a fair number of anonymized data sets together in order to create greater granularity for our clients, and then on top of it, apply various types of analytics to optimize budget, or basically to make the either to make people more money, or to make their money go a little bit further in very simplistic terms.
Beyond marketing and, say, your past life experience, what other types of real-time intelligence systems opportunities are you seeing coming on the horizon?
The one that I think would be quite exciting is the data that is coming from smart devices, right? So, for example, there's devices that are taking measurements around us that are everywhere, right? The simplest ones are things that you use every single day. For example, Google Maps. You're using data which may be coming from ground sensors, which are estimating the speed, and also from cell phones, which by being in that area give you an estimate of footfall, for example, right? But at this point, you need fair amount of analytics in order to understand it. So those devices are not necessarily smart; they're just measurement devices. Now, imagine if every single device that exists, you can have a ChatGPT function that basically allows you to communicate with any one of these devices. And I can see that is going to be the case, where very soon, probably for the next few years, you will have people who'll be able to directly connect to any satellite in the world, for example, and ask you questions. What are you seeing? Or have you been able to identify any type of new economic activity? Things that used to be the domain of experts and hardcore data scientists, which will be very soon available to consumer like you and me.
What I like about that is I kind of have I don't know, a theory, a hypothesis brewing, if you will, that, we talk a lot about AI and the impact on work and the workforce, but I almost have a hope that it's actually going to have more personal impacts for, like, how is it, like, wellness, health, knowing how your body works, things like that. And I mean, some of that those geospatial items, it could be, hey, and you gonna, this is gonna be very maybe trite and insignificant, but like, you on a 5 mile run every day, and I see you're in Bratislava today. Here's a route I'd recommend because I see you need more hill work. Your your miles per hour tanks when you hit a hill, and it's like all of those little sensor moments, whether it's, your watch or, a phone that you're carrying, etcetera.
Yeah, I would say that very soon we will kind of enter a new stage of self-awareness. Self-awareness which will be powered by a lot of these devices, and hopefully some of these devices will be able to communicate to each other as you're passing through one. So you'll get that sense of immediate real-time integration. And my hope is that if you think about it, the first line of analytics is descriptive. Now we are getting kind of into predictive, and then hopefully very soon we'll get to prescriptive. Like similar to what you kind of said, it will not only know that your heartbeat right now is at 145 beats per minute, but hey, you usually react really well when you have a protein shake a little bit later. So don't forget to take it. So something that is, if you will, a friend that always follows you uh, anywhere you go. Now, at the same time, one of the things that we also have to be very careful of is how this might impact our regular human relationships, right? And one of the things that worries me as I look at some of these things is situations where, for example, mental health assistants or companions that completely adapt to you, right? Companions that completely adapt to you. I worry about it from standpoint of what that would mean to the future of human relationships, right? I've been married for a while, and I know that there is two truths to marriage. One is don't criticize, doesn't matter how much you want to. And then the second one is marriage is a compromise. So any kind of relationship is a compromise. Now, imagine if you have an AI companion that always agrees with you, and yes, eh,
I think there was a Black Mirror episode about that, I'll be honest, if
really,
you haven't yeah, there was
I
in the
haven't
latest
I haven't
season of
seen it.
Black Mirror, there's something that I think it was that's where it was, it hints at
I
that,
need to
so,
show this to my wife, but
yeah.
it may have a counterproductive impact. But the point is, if you grow up in an environment where everything is so adaptive to you, are you going to be able to, or are you going to be receptive to a compromise?
It is interesting because, I mean, the whole, does a machine understand the concept of a logical fallacy, the confirmation bias, searching for a negative answer, et cetera? And I mean, yeah, I could see that going very much awry. Is like, okay, well, I'm going to keep listening to this. It's telling me what I want, and are you training it to tell you what you want, like with the systems, with the systems around you?
Yeah. So, like for example, for us right now, when we deal with some of this bias with data, we use multiple LLMs, multiple large language models that are kind of being the peer judges of decisions that are being made. The idea there, as much as possible, is to deal with some of the biases of training data and also decisions that have been embedded in each LLM to ensure that there is some level of balance. But obviously, it's never perfect.
I will say my brain just clicked. It was actually not Black Mirror. I was watching that. It was of all things, there was an episode of South Park that would talked about Chat GPT reinforcing, like, yeah, what the husband wanted to hear and what the wife wanted to hear. It was actually yes, pop culture than Black Mirror, but still a very I love that conversation. And well, slight pivot is like this. Multimodal AI is like it's having its moment right now, and um, how are they showing up in more of a day-to-day work? Is it something we are to me, that's not something you experience as like you're noting, "Hey, this is a multimodal AI moment." So, what's your perspective on how it's really showing up in our day-to-day and maybe going to be showing up in our day-to-day in the months, years to come?
Obvious application that I see for this is robotics. Okay, because in robotics you have a combination both of dexterity, if you will. You also have combination of computer vision, and you have also a combination of speech to speech, basically recognition of commands, and potentially text commands. So from that standpoint, it will be probably automation of manufacturing systems, if you will. I mean, one of the things that Amazon recently came out with is that they're planning to automate around 73% of their manufacturing based on what essentially is multimodal AI capabilities, which would be insane given the fact that Amazon has more than 2 million people working for them. So from that standpoint, automating 73% is a very large number, especially with others will follow. The other application is which is very similar to this, is probably automation of agriculture and agriculture operations, because you do use a kind of combination of, if you will, of computer vision again, type of process, and I can actually see where a farmer wakes up in the morning and basically orders the machine to go and do X, Y, and Z, and it recognizes a process, and it does it, and it cuts it based on the precision of the training behind computer vision. In regular life, it's basically think of it as activating the ChatGPT mode for voice activation, and asking ChatGPT, for example, to serve as your fitness coach. You can literally ask it to judge how well you're doing particular exercises. And it can provide motivation, but at the same time, using computer vision, it can estimate how high you're jumping and what you're doing. Imagine, for example, combining that with an equivalent of a fitness watch that feeds that feedback loop directly into the LLM, and it automatically adjusts the guidance based on what it sees as your blood pressure or your pulse or your perspiration, for example.
I had this perhaps naive hope that AI is actually going to make us more human. And, when I think about that systems, it's like, okay, that's great to have that trainer, but at some point it's the end of it's a technology and you can just turn it off if you don't wanna listen to it, and there's that human aspect that might be, in that case, good for motivation, but, AI overall, I'm hoping the technology brings us, a little bit back to humanity, and, you had shared with me a really interesting labor study, with some dimensions and trends on the type of work.
I'll actually share two studies, right? One, which I found to be fascinating, it was an MIT study which looked at the work patterns from 1970s until 2016, and actually, sorry, 2018. And what the study actually did was the author looked at roughly 2 million jobs and broke the jobs by specific type of tasks, whether it's abstract tasks, manual, or routine tasks that are required to do the job. And what he saw was that over time, as automation was taking place, the percentage of jobs which the percentage of abstract tasks which were required to do the jobs increased 70%, while the percentage of tasks which were focused on routine went down by roughly 40%, and on manual went down by around 60%, which basically means that as intelligent automation continues, we're more likely to experience need to be more creative, more focused on abstract thinking, and also on system thinking rather than on manual dexterity, if you will. The other study, which was done recently, actually showed an interesting pattern. It showed that what we are seeing, especially in the last year and a half, is a decrease in when it comes to junior jobs. This is a Microsoft study. Is we are seeing a decrease of for junior jobs, a decrease of anywhere between 6 to 13%. But at the same time, it also saw an increase in mid-level and mid-level and senior jobs by anywhere between 6 to 9%. And the reason for that was because and again, what the authors are suggesting is first that mid-level and senior personnel was able to do a lot more with the tools that AI was providing for their jobs, but at the same time, uh, they were using, if you will, their intuition, their gut, their knowledge of business rules, which are not the things which were embedded in regular AI applications. So from that standpoint, they're more focused on utilizing their human skill set rather than something that could necessarily be placed in the training data.
One of the things we've talked a lot about, at IBM and in my job, and I should say more broadly with other CIOs, is that like you would traditionally think of labor as like a pyramid, like your junior folks, and then obviously there can end of the day you can only have one CEO, right? So the jobs become more scarce the more senior you get. But what's actually happening is we're at a moment where it's more of a diamond shape for exactly what you're laying out, and, universities, I think, are gonna have to learn how to, adapt to that, and, the workforce, and I think what an entry-level job today looks like is gonna just it's gonna be very different entry-level job 2 years
Yeah,
from now. We're just figuring it
and
out
and
right
and,
now.
and and honestly, this is normal. I
Mhm.
like to give people a stat that 60% of the jobs that exist right now did not exist before 1940. So, and basically, they were introduced as a new technology came in. The world didn't topple over. It's just the world adapted, and we had a completely different generation of jobs which are created.
I've made it said it's akin to more of an industrial revolution moment than just a like, "Hey, e-commerce, everyone get on the web," right? And everyone's still there. It's like, no, this is a fundamental way like, a unit of work is a different unit like, a unit of work is no longer the same unit of work it was a year ago, 18 months ago, what have you. We're gonna adapt, and it's the idea that, really, like, the systems, the base skills need to be, you know, are very important to be known. And I could see universities still talking about, like, as a computer scientist, there's this big, thick, white Dijkstra book that everyone had. Every computer scientist I know, in computer engineers, electricals had, and you still have to know all the fundamentals in there, but maybe it's not important if you learn Java, Python, or Perl, right? It's not so much about the context and syntax of a language, but it's how it builds out, and then kind of you skip over this language, and then it goes more to that high level of senior skill where you need the intuition and experience.
You still need fundamentals. Fundamentals are not gonna go away, anytime soon, and there's, there are many lessons in history as to what happens, if you, uh, don't adopt technology quickly. My hope is that all of us have learned that saying no to technology and not thinking about smart adaptation is just not the way to go.
Absolutely. It's like, what was there was that survive or die. Was that the name of it? Like, or adapt or die kind of concept? Yeah. So it's like it's a moment.
Well, yeah, but to me, it's actually it's adapt or really stagnate moment, which is an issue. But yeah, adapt or die is typically the way to look at it. Yeah.
And if I can pivot for a moment back to marketing, is like, obviously, real depth of knowledge and experience you're bringing to the table here is, are you actually seeing a change in how brands communicate with their audiences, with their customers, because of AI, something that AI has brought to the table that's unique for a marketer, for brand outreach?
So I would say that there's three things that AI brought to the table. First thing that AI brought to the table is automation of workflows, right? There's a lot of work in media operations which used to be and still continues to be highly manual. So the question is, how do you use AI, whether it's robotic process automation, which is not AI, but like just automation of tasks, intelligence automation, or whether it's AI, which is high level of AI, like agentic, which allows you to automate the entire workflow for a prompt. That has had a major impact on some of the basic workflows and eliminating a lot of those manual tasks, right? The second aspect there was something which really helps people, really helps in marketing, kind of spark creativity. There's a lot of different uh, AI applications right now that allow you to create creative assets very quickly. And it allows, if you will, small agencies to very quickly compete with much larger agencies, given the fact that in the past they would not have been able to afford this type of support in the past. But suddenly, it's all about what do you have here and how do you quickly apply that creativity and wizardly on using new algorithms instead of having massive groups of people work on large scale applications for building creative assets. So I would say, in essence, it's three things. One is AI is helping agencies do things that people don't want to do, like manual tasks. The second is it is enhancing analytics on kind of like increasing value through revenue generation or cutting down costs. And the third one, it is a complete boom in creativity. Like it's enhancing creativity. So those are three major applications of AI in marketing, if you will.
I would assume it creates a high, like, you have now your digital sitting alongside a real human. Marketing organizations and departments is like, how do you see that evolving over the next, few years, like a hybrid digital human type of marketing department or approach?
My sense is that very soon we're gonna have two things happen. One is we will definitely have large scale teams of agents working directly with a team of humans that serve both as, if you will, human in a loop, as a creative spark, and also as a program manager, right? So humans will have to rethink of themselves as the starting piece of a puzzle, but more as a manager of a highly specialized team that basically helps them throughout any piece of a process.
Pivoting a little bit more to your specific role, right, is there's always a balance of, pushing the frontier versus what's an actual solution the client can use. And, there's the MIT study that everyone talks about out there right now that is 95% of projects, AI projects are delivering 0 ROI, 5% are successful. And, I assume that's, that kind of thinking has got to be a factor in your choices of like, do we try to push out something we're trying to get ahead and we think we know you want something to your clients versus, okay, I got this. Look, I've got my feature set. We've got our roadmaps. That's what we're committed to deliver. Cause that's a real hard balance, I think, for a lot of companies right now.
It is, and it will continue to be a problem for quite some time, right? So if you look at this study, the study asked the question, what is it that was 5% have that was 95% don't have? And it says that couple of things are true. In the 95% that don't work, there is an issue with legacy workflows. So the workflows inside existing companies are usually clunky. There's a lot of spaghetti code. It's a mess, especially they've been around for quite some time, and it's very hard to put AI on top of it. So that's one. So there's underestimate of what of a data engineering task that it will require. The second element is that a lot of times AI or expectations of what AI is supposed to do is quite different from what AI can actually do. Yeah, there's a lot of snake oil out there. And then the third issue is that there's a disconnect between what AI can do and the actual business model of a company. To put it bluntly, sometimes AI can cannibalize what this company has been producing for quite some time. The typical story of Kodak, for example, right? So those are three issues. So the side effect of that is that when the companies are looking for somebody that they want to partner with or think through how to make this work, the first thing that they say is that we trust our existing vendors. We trust the people with whom we want a trusted pair of hands, with whom we have worked for quite some time. And then what we want those guys to do is to create, if you will, coalitions of a willing to bring the right partners on the innovation side to help them innovate. So from that standpoint, by bringing the trusted pair of hands, it solves the problem of dealing with existing legacy pipelines, data pipelines, and also deals with a question of knowing very well, knowing intimately the business aspects and business value and business process of those companies. And then on top of it, you bring in people who bring in new concepts, right? So from our standpoint, one of the things that we did in our partnership with IBM is we brought that trusted pair of hands that really understands how to deal with data engineering and also knows for over 100 years how to extract the business value. And what we've added on top of it is our know-how of what does it mean to automate or to think through media operations or think through media buying, media planning, and also financial reconciliation. So we brought in the best of data science, the best of data engineering, and the best of know-how together, right? So to service our clients. So our hope is that we do end up, and we are that 5%.
Well, and it's interesting, you brought up partnerships, and I think there's maybe 2 angles to partnerships. So, obviously, IBM and MINT.ai have a partnership, but there's also and I think it comes from a philosophy is where the world is now, you can't go at it alone. Like, everyone competed before, now we're realizing is like, no one person, no one company can do it, and but kind of if I pull the thread a little bit further on that, that's, saying, like, data scientists can't go at it alone, engineers can't go at it alone, a marketer can't go at it alone, and is there anything you feel like you have to do in a take the extra step to foster collaboration between disciplines that, maybe previously kind of siloed off a little from each other?
Get them ChatGPT to translate the jargon. No, but to be honest, I think one of the biggest roles that I have to play and that a few people on my team play is translators. There is nothing better than somebody who can walk between different teams and explain what is needed. First thing that I tell people when they start working on a product is to come up with a common definition of success, because data scientists and data engineers often look at success in a very different way as compared to business people. And as a result of it, there's a lot of disappointment, and tears and lost money. So once you figure out that common definition of success and how to measure it, you have to ensure with proper processes that this continues to be the case. Because it's very easy for one discipline to kind of say, I'm going to do things the way that I've been trained to do it for the last 10 years. So to have those translators in a process is key.
That concept of a glue roll, right? And it's like, there's multiple, like, kind of pick your study, pick your outlet on this. It's like glue rolls tend to be undervalued, but I really there's like a renaissance, there's a resurgence, I think, of the importance of these. The folks that can, are you said Chat GPT, but whoever the translator is, like, the walking
Yeah,
translator. It was the old joke in the movie Office Space. I take the requirements from the customers to the engineers, but
yeah.
I mean, it's
I
there's
and
reality to that.
Yeah, I sit on the advisory board of University of Virginia McIntyre School of Commerce, and one of the biggest things that their syllabus focuses on consistently is on how do you build business analyst or business translator that can walk between the roles, because it is usually the most overlooked but the most necessary part of a process when you're trying to build a good product.
We talked about innovation and the choices and the trade-offs, and I'm curious, like, as really, kind of ask your team to think about responsible innovation, like, what does responsible innovation look like for you? Is it a philosophy? Are there metrics and measurements you would say are tied to what a responsible innovation looks like within a team?
So for us, responsible innovation is both a core value and also a core unique value proposition. So one of the things that we've built is a multi-agentic AI system. The idea of multi-agentic AI system is where you have each agent which is focused on a particular task, and there's multiple LLMs under the hood that are fighting with each other for the right solution. And then right in the middle of it, you also have a supervisor agent. The supervisor agent's job is to ensure that all the tasks are done appropriately with regards to the top brief, the overall brief, and then at the end of the day, no specialized knowledge of one of the agents overrules the other. Now, in the process, there's a full audit of all the decisions that are being made. This way, you know at any given point which agent made the decision, what actually required that decision, and also at what point did a human intervene and said this is right or this is wrong. This is really really important for pretty much any business application. But in our case, where you're dealing with millions of dollars in ad revenue, you definitely want to know how money was appropriated and how money was optimized in a right way, especially in an evolving field such as multi-agentic AI, where people are still getting very comfortable to this, still getting comfortable with the entire concept. Uh, responsible AI to me basically means both transparent decision making, and at the same time extensive guardrails to prevent AI from doing anything harmful or anything stupid. I will give you an example, which I often tell people to consider from, if you will, my prior life, if you will, and that's in 2022 or 2023. There was an exercise, and it was an exercise, joint U.S. British exercise, where a drone system was actually asked to destroy a target on a ground. And consistently, as it was being asked to engage with a target on a ground control in the last minute would prevent the drone system from destroying that particular target. Eventually, the drone system decided that the most effective way for it to engage with a target on the ground was to destroy the ground system first, because it was preventing it from destroying the
Doing its
target on the
task
ground.
is stopping it
Right.
from doing its task, so
Exactly. That is probably the best example that I can give you of the dangers of not utilizing responsible AI. I know it's an extreme example, but it gives you a sense of what could happen if you don't follow the right way to establish guardrails.
you now win the prize for the most terrifying real world example of AI
Sorry.
that I've ever seen. But no, but in all seriousness, so like, as when I was a kid growing up, one of my favorite movies was War Games, right? And it started out with the kids playing chess, right? And let's play global thermonuclear war, right? And at the time it was science fiction. It doesn't seem that science fiction-y anymore. Just like, Terminator doesn't seem that science fiction-y anymore, right? I almost feel like what's that Back to the Future Day was actually 10 years ago, like the movie Back to the Future. It's like, those are the toys I wanted in the future. I didn't want robots and AIs potentially destroying the world, right? I wanted a hoverboard. I wanted a hoverboard personally, but so, um, and then like just kind of to wrap up on a couple things is like one, I'd love to like, how do you think about hype versus real value? And again, we talked about how you make decisions and your choices are responsible AI, but like, is there something that really sticks out to you as like one or two things that really say, this is what this tells me it's just hype, and this something else, an indicator of what's hype versus what's real?
Honestly, when people tell me that AI can substitute for human, for human, I get, I often tune that out. And the reason for it is, usually in an AI application, I ask for a very specific application. Machines are very good at certain things that humans are not necessarily good at. Like, for example, being able to do massive calculations on a fly. That's what machines are very good at. Machines are very good at automating specific workflows. They're very good at that. Machines are not good at creativity. Machines are not good at the task that they're not trained on. And chess is a great example, where recently one of the actually one of the former champions of the world played against ChatGPT, and was able to beat ChatGPT without losing a single piece. Why? The reason for it is because ChatGPT was not trained how to play chess.
Hmm. It's a
Versus,
general, yeah.
that's right. Versus Deep Blue beat Gary Kasparov in 1997, because
Hmm.
it was an agent which was actually specifically trained how to play chess. So bottom line is, if somebody tells me that here is a general utility AI that is actually able to do everything, I usually tune them out, right? When people talk to me about very specific applications, and they also tell me a sense of limits of how far this application goes, I get more comfortable with that. Like, for example, there is a stat that 56% of agentic AI pilots fail. Why? Because typically what happens is, in a prototype, you can get to about 70% accuracy, and people get very happy about this. But then you cannot get past 90% accuracy. Okay, that's just the state of the art. So what typically happens is people pick a business use case which requires a much higher level of accuracy as compared to 90%. So the first thing that I tell people is, find the use case that is between those 70 to 90% accuracy. That's where the current state of AI is. And if you can do that, then I'm willing to listen to you.
No, and I think that's fair. Because one of the other things I've seen that drives some failures too is like a lack of understanding of the workflow and the outcome you're trying to drive with AI too. Because it's, sometime if you dig in and say, well, this is the outcome I'm going to try to drive, and you find out, well, Well, it wasn't the problem was I had 300 people that needed to approve something, not that I needed an AI to move those 300 approvers faster, as very simplistic example too. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, perfect and great insight, great insight. And I think what I'd love to kind of wrap with you is so you're again, your very unique background in history. I think you've got the single most fascinating background and career of anyone I've been just so lucky to talk to doing this podcast. And are there any lessons in leadership you've learned going from those types of high security environments to, to the corporate environment?
One of the best leaders in a military that I've seen was General McChrystal, Stan McChrystal. General McChrystal was someone who at one point was the head of special forces in Iraq, and then became the head of all forces in Afghanistan. And later on, he wrote a book based on his philosophy of training called Teams of Teams. If you haven't read it, I recommend that you read it. It's a great book, great philosophy. But to be honest, it boils down to the following facts. One is rule number one is identify right people for the job. Rule number two, very clearly articulate what you want them to do and provide strategic guidance. Rule number three, stay out of the way. And basically don't micromanage. If you trust that this the right people for the job, uh, empower them, give them a sense of authority, and let them do the job. And I think that works quite well. That is a philosophy that I try to follow myself.
Perfect words of wisdom to wrap on. And Mark Polyak, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. This was truly like amazing fun. I learned so much
Thank you
from
very
you in
much.
such a short time. This is great. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for listening today. I hope you learned as much as I did and hope to see you again in a couple weeks.